Falcom has always been a little RPG studio, innovating in the back corner of the room unnoticed among its peers, but cherished by those who have played their games. Falcom has never been a company to hit mainstream recognition for their games despite being a developer that's always pushed the industry forward, at least in the West. While Enix and Square were innovating turn-based RPGs with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, Falcom was laying the foundation of what action RPGs could be with such titles as Dragon Slayer and Ys. Ys has always been a small, beloved series among its fans, but never got widespread success, which is why it took so many of us by surprise when Ys VIII blew up in popularity and all of a sudden every YouTuber and publication was talking about it. It's taken years, but Ys and Falcom have finally gotten the mainstream recognition they deserve. It's a series I've always known about but never played until recently. My goal was to catch up so I could play this game and see what all the hype was about. 8 games later, and here I am, happy to report this endeavor was worth it. Falcom struck white Emless with this title, and it shows. Enough gushing over the title though, we've got a game to review, so let's dive right in. We once again take the role of Adol Kristen. Him and Dogi are passengers aboard the Lombardia. They agreed to work for the captain in order to pay their way back to Asteria from the city of Xandria after the events of Ys V. Captain Barbaros tells Adol of the Isle of Seren, a sailor's worst nightmare as ships crash on the island and are never heard from again. Adol, of course, is intrigued, but has no clue that he and the rest of the ship are about to get a one-way ticket to the island. After checking for mysterious stowaways on the ship as per Barbaros' request, a giant squid attacks the ship, leaving them shipwrecked on the island. Adol soon meets up with Laxia, Captain Barbaros, and Dogi. They set up a small village for the castaways as Dogi and Barbaros stay behind to work on the stronghold. Adol and Laxia search for other castaways that were aboard the Lombardia. The story unfolds in a manner of different ways and is worth experiencing without spoilers, but in true Ys fashion, Adol will stumble across an ancient civilization and ultimately have to save it from imminent destruction. Something a great story needs to get right is its characters. Generally, if you mess up your characters or your characters are not that interesting, most people do not give your story a second look. Falcom has always had a craft for making memorable characters, and the Ys series is no different. As a matter of fact, it says something about Adol and Dogi as characters when I can play the games back to back and genuinely be curious about what adventures they're going to get themselves into next. Despite Adol being a silent protagonist, I've always liked how the series has always made him feel like he is part of the story. I've never been in the camp your protagonist needs to talk to feel like they are part of the story. Ys VIII is no different in this regard, but it's Ys VIII's ability to make you deeply care about the side characters far more than any other entry in the series has in the past. It's its unique cast of characters, each bringing their charm and various skills and roles to the village, making each character feel as if they are part of Castaway Village, making them feel unique in their own way. The game may borrow elements of cliched characters, but that's hardly a flaw when your character feels like they're contributing something to the gameplay. Because of this, I felt inclined to do every side quest, hunt down every gift, and see every bonding event. Each of these are something that I will get more into detail when we get into our gameplay section of the review. I definitely have my favorite castaways, but there isn't a single character I would say was weak when it comes to its writing. It's Ys VIII's small but clever interactions with these characters that give them so much personality. It's a huge cast, and yet the game is paced well enough it gives you time to get to know them if you desire without hampering the gameplay experience or bogging you down with needless backstory and details. Each member of Castaway Village was a passenger aboard the Lombardia, each with different reasons for being aboard, backgrounds, and social status. It's how they explore the story of these characters, how each of them contribute something to the village, and ultimately have to set aside their differences and work together to get off the island that makes this game's early moments memorable and worth playing. The story takes some time to get going, but when it does, you will not want to stop playing. It's these characters through the first 8 to 10 hours of the game that give you the motivation to push through the game's slow build-up. Let's dive into Ys VIII's gameplay, because oh boy did Falcom knock it out of the park this time. Ys VIII is able to combine different types of gameplay without compromising the identity of the series or changing it into something that is far removed from the core gameplay. This was something I heavily criticized Ni no Kuni 2 for, was its inability to settle on a specific gameplay style or really master any in particular. Ys VIII, however, introduced hunts and raids into its gameplay, and it's all the more exciting for it. Raids play out much more like a tower defense, while hunts play out more like invading the enemy stronghold and luring out the bosses. We're going to give the raids and hunts their own section, but for now, let's talk about the basic battle mechanics. Ys VIII uses the same structure to its battles as Ys VII and Memories of Celceta. Each member of your party has a different type of damage they can do to the enemy: strike, slash, and pierce. It is up to you to decide what the enemy weakness is and exploit that in order to do more damage. You'll also be able to break the enemy, downing them for a short period of time, allowing you to get additional hits on them without having to worry about being hit yourself. Each character also comes equipped with arts that do a little bit more damage than your basic attacks. Each character also plays slightly different, but will still fulfill that same category of strike, pierce, and slash. You'll have 2 party members from each of those categories to choose from. Battles are quick, fun, and put a heavy emphasis on flash move and flash guard this time around. Your attack button is utilized by the shoulder buttons along with X, triangle, square, and circle. You are able to do specific arts if you have adequate enough SP, represented by the blue meter on the lower right hand side of the screen. You'll also be able to use special abilities. This is represented by the yellow orb. Once that is completely full, you'll be able to use the bumpers in order to execute that to get an attack that does a heavy amount of damage to your enemy. Your flash move is executed by using the left bumper, and your flash guard is executed by using the right bumper. Using either of these will give you an advantage in battle. Successfully pulling off a flash move will slow down the enemy, allowing you to get multiple hits on an enemy, while flash guard allows you to do the same, but gives you quick moments of invulnerability instead. You'll also be able to switch your active party on the fly, allowing you to adapt to any situation when fighting enemies. This time though, it replaces the party member with whoever you are controlling right in that position. This was a vast improvement over Ys VII, which made a late game dungeon a royal pain in the ass to deal with. It's always great to see companies learn from mistakes from their past games and make them better in the future. Boss battles are also fun and exciting, and I'm glad to see things I loved in Memories of Celceta make a return. Bosses also don't feel like giant battle sponges like they did in Ys VII, which was very welcome, as that was one of my heavy criticisms of Ys VII. I'm missing the environmental boss fights or the platforming boss fights of past games though, coming off of Ys Origins, which was arguably the best game for boss fights in the series. I really noticed this. Though at this time, perhaps I should accept Falcom is moving away from this mechanic and focusing more on the strategy of a party-based battle system, rather than focusing so much on the mechanics that were used in the Napishtim engine games. Before we move away from regular combat, there is one thing we do need to talk about. Adol does share the spotlight with Donna in this game, albeit brief appearances, but due to spoiler reasons, I will not say much more than that. As for this, we will only specifically be focusing on her gameplay and none of the story elements. These areas are heavily puzzle-based, and Donna has 3 movesets that she is allowed to use. By utilizing spirits, she is able to switch between the roles of using slash, strike, and pierce, basically allowing her to be all 3 party members without the need of the other 2. It's an interesting twist to Ys VIII's gameplay and is very reminiscent of earlier games, especially the Arc of Napishtim, where Adol had 3 different swords that allowed him to do 3 different elements and kind of change up the combat in various ways. Her movesets not only give her unique abilities to use in battle, but also allow her to solve puzzles as well. For instance, you can only put flames out with Donna, Blocks can only be broken by using her hammer, and by using the light spirit you are able to see hidden paths you otherwise couldn't see. This adds heavy puzzle elements to the game, and though not complicated, it did make me stop and think how I was going to get past certain areas. Raids play out a lot like a tower defense game. You'll have a gate that you will need to protect and make sure that the enemies do not break into your village. The gate will have an HP bar. Once that reaches 0, it is game over, so you do not want your enemies touching it. You'll also have the ability to be able to set up defenses across the battlefield. As the game progresses, you'll be able to set up more by using various equipment and items found throughout the game. You'll also be able to add enhancements, making them stronger. You'll also be able to add such status effects as stun, burn, break, and poison as time goes on. They can break if enough damage is done though, so you do want to make sure that you're dealing with enemies rather quickly. The advantage to having status effects on them though is you are able to take down the monsters a lot quicker. The monsters come in waves, and depending on how well you do, a gauge at the top of the screen will read Danger, Caution, Equal, or Heroic. You'll be split into 2 teams, Adol's team and Dogi's team. Dogi's team will be made up of the remaining castaways, while Adol's will be made up of his active party. Occasionally the other team will jump in and help you out, adding additional attacks or giving you some special benefits. All of these factors come together to give you a final S ranking, which is the highest you can achieve. You'll also get higher rankings for various things, such as how many defenses you had left standing, the total amount of damage your party took, if you use Flash Guard and Flash Move, taking no damage, and using a special skill. You can always go back and retry raids to get a higher rating. Each rating has various rewards once you get them though. And the higher rating you do get, the ranking you do get, it does go towards your reputation. And we'll talk more about reputation here in just a little bit. Hunts are probably the most exciting of the 3 and the ones I found myself enjoying most. Enemies at some point will invade certain areas and you'll have to fight to get them back. These sections also just play out like normal battles, but with a few added features and objectives that you will need to complete. You'll once again have the meter letting you know how you are doing and also grading you on your ranking. The object this time is to destroy the nest and lure out the boss. By destroying nests, you will get a higher advantage and significantly cut back on the enemies you'll encounter. You'll also have to light torches. Torches will significantly give you advantage once all in a certain area are lit. These allow you to do more damage to enemies as well as destroy their nests a lot faster. The more torches you have lit and nests you destroy will make it much easier to gain the advantage. The bosses will run away but won't regain HP, so once they disappear you'll have to hunt them down and keep on focusing your attacks to kill them. Keeping your torches lit though is going to give you the advantage, so you'll want to make sure that once a torch is destroyed by an enemy that you go back to relight that, so you're able to always deal more damage to your enemies. Night investigations allow you to re-explore areas that you have already explored, but during the nighttime. During the nighttime, you will have brand new chests that you will be able to collect, a map that will be able to be re-explored, enemies that will be different and a lot stronger, and these raids are a great way to get loads of different rewards and experiences, and can even sometimes be connected to side quests. You'll also get different fish during night raids too. Yes, Ys 8 has one of those damned fishing mini games that plague every JRPG of the modern age, and I caught every fish just to max out Shoebill's approval rating. But back on subject, I was never a fan of night raids, but from time to time I did find them useful to reap the benefits that they gave your party. Exploration has always been a huge part of Ys's gameplay, unlocking new areas, going back and exploring new paths with new equipment, and finding the game's secrets. Ys 8 is no different when it comes to this. As a matter of fact, it puts the biggest emphasis on exploration the series has ever seen, and that's saying something. There is a lot to explore in this game, and if you want to get yourself that true ending, you're going to be doing a lot of it. Such tools as gloves will let you climb vines, or boots will let you float across swamps, or items that will allow you to breathe underwater are just some of the things that you can find on your adventure. What's actually really cool is you're able to equip more than one of these at a time. The highest I was ever able to equip was 4. Gone are the days pulling up the menu and selecting what you need each time and having to use the item, then going back in and selecting another item if you needed to use it. Ys 8 is actually littered with loads of small but satisfying little quality of life improvements like this, which will make it extremely difficult for those playing Ys 8 to go back and experience some of the earlier series. You're able to fast travel at early stages and are rarely locked out of fast travel at all. There are loads of shortcuts to pull up menus and maps. It's responsive and never pulls you away from what you're trying to do. Can we talk about the map and take time to appreciate how this game handles its full screen map? Seriously. By sticking it specifically to the left side of the screen and allowing you to still have a wide range to see where your characters are running is a huge, huge help. Being able to see what is in front of them adds so much depth to the gameplay. It honestly baffles me that it took so many developers this long to realize that this was a great idea. Nothing was more annoying than pulling up a map and having it go full screen and having to take it down in order to see where your party members were with that grayed out black screen or gray screen, or having your characters' vision obscured by the map. Ys 8 effectively eliminated that entirely and found what I think is the best option and a staple that all games should include moving forward. Not just Falcom titles, but every game ever made that is going to have this function. Exploration nets you landmarks to find treasures, chests, castaways, items, crafting materials, for items for quests and gifts to give the castaways. Something that makes a return in this game was map completion, which we first saw in Memories of Celceta, and doing so will net you rewards and reputation points as well, which are needed for that true ending. A finer detail I enjoyed about Ys 8 was how it stayed true to the Castaway feel. The game does entirely away with any form of currency and instead opts for a barter system in its place. It makes sense, as you're all stuck on an island together, money is going to be pointless. Because of this, everything has to be crafted, from weapons, armor, accessories, and healing items, all requiring materials dropped from monsters or harvested from mining spots. RNG is also very favorable. Very few times did I find myself needing to run around hoping an enemy or a harvest point would drop what I needed. Most of the time it had it, and if it didn't, it was dropped in an upcoming dungeon or area I had yet to explore. You'll also be able to upgrade your equipment by getting flame stones acquired through progressing the story. You'll be able to acquire recipes found scattered throughout the island as well, which allow you to cook food. These will either heal you, give you a resistance to a status effect, or up your status for a short period of time. This mechanic, though, is where I have one of my biggest criticisms of the game. You are able to craft healing items, but during a late game boss I found myself in an optional dungeon where I was about 15 levels lower than what I should have been. Needless to say, I was struggling with its boss. I about had it dead, but one of my party members was low on health and I only had a dish to heal him. Since I used up my healing items in the fights with monsters progressing to the boss, the game would not let me eat the food, because I had a status effect from the dish already. I could not eat any dish I had in my inventory. I found this infuriating because I didn't care about receiving the other benefits, I just wanted the HP to heal. It botched the entire fight and I ended up losing because I wasn't able to eat that dish. And lastly, let's talk about the side quests and how to get the true ending. Your actions around camp play a huge role into your reputation, and this will affect the ending that you're going to get. There are 3 endings to achieve: a bad ending, a normal ending, and a true ending. Ideally, if you want the game's true conclusion, you're going to want to go for the true ending. In order to do this, you will need to get a reputation of 200 or above if you are playing on Switch, PS4, or PC. The Vita version only requires you to get 150 because the Vita version lacks other content that the other versions have. There are a multitude of ways to increase your reputation. Ranks you get in raids and hunts will go towards your reputations, notes left from various pirates go towards your reputation, completing the map, giving castaways gifts, finding castaways, completing castaways bonding events, and completing side quests for castaways all go towards your reputation. Side quests usually are fetch quests that do net rewards, but are worked into the game as something that benefits the castaways, such as building beds for the castaways to sleep on, or finding materials to make curtains for the ladies' quarters so they have a place to change in private. It's clever writing like this that makes the side quests feel like they are much more meaningful than just a random fetch quest. All of your side quests will be accepted at a board next to the entrance of the village. You'll have to talk to them to learn more information. In order to max out the appeal with a character, you'll need to complete a side quest, give them some gifts, some requiring 2, but once they are maxed out, an emoji will appear above their head indicating you have a bonding quest to do. And for spoiler reasons, I've decided not to show footage of this, just because it's so late into the game and there's so much that could potentially be spoiled. I want you guys to be able to go into this as blind as possible and not have anything spoiled. These are marked to side quests on the maps though, so you will know when bonding events are also available if you are looking at the Castaway map. Do not stress about maxing out your reputation either. As long as you're taking time to explore each area, doing every side quest, and making sure you give all castaways gifts, you will have plenty of reputation by the end of the game. It gives you a wide range for error, so just don't stress about it. Some things are missable, but you're going to be able to make up that reputation later on. Ys has always been a series with killer soundtracks. Even Ys 5, which people argue is the worst soundtrack in the series, has its standout songs that I really enjoyed. But Ys 8's soundtrack is really on a whole new level. Even by Ys standards, this OST really stands out among its predecessors and hands down is my favorite in the series, which says something considering Ys Books 1 and 2, Oath and Felghana, and Ys 7 all have standout soundtracks too. It's got the perfect blend of instrumental, rock, and soft melodic tunes that are not only catchy, but perfectly encapsulate the feel of each area and moment. It's hard to pick only 3 songs that I really enjoyed in this soundtrack, but Sunshine Coastline, A Footprint in Wet Sand, and Yesterday in Eternia are beautiful compositions. Seriously, how on earth Falcom is able to craft soundtracks with this consistency with every game is beyond me. The only other composer that rivals them in my opinion is Nobuo Uematsu and Yasunori Matsuda. I do want to touch upon the graphics because I've heard some complaint of this game just not having that good of graphics. First off, a game does not need stellar graphics to be good. You can still have a great story, gameplay, and music with a simple yet effective art style. As a matter of fact, I find games are sometimes held back by focusing too much on graphics, but that's a rant for another day. Falcom also isn't a triple studio backed by a giant company like Bandai Namco or Square Enix with support and money at their disposal. Falcom has always been a studio for the most part who has worked very well with what they've had and know their limitations of what they can and can't achieve. If you're going to criticize graphics, criticize them for frame rate drops, graphical glitches, and bugs. I find it disheartening when someone dismisses a game for graphics because it doesn't look as good or on par with some of its contemporaries, especially when it comes from a game being built on a modest budget. Let's get into a couple of the small complaints and performance issues that I had. On very few occasions, the voices would fade out over the background music, making them damn near impossible to hear. This only happened during certain segments of the game, and you can always go in and turn down the default settings to fix this, but I only ever noticed this towards the end of the game. My game also froze during a dungeon as I was opening a treasure chest, halting my progression, and since I had not saved, I had lost about 20 minutes of gameplay because of it. It wasn't a big issue, but it was enough of annoyance to make me roll my eyes in frustration at the thought of repeating it. Other than these small complaints, there really isn't many complaints I have of the game, and if there is, they are so small they're not worth mentioning. In closing, Ys VIII was a great game and one of the best games this generation. It was well worth the journey through all of the Ys games, and I can say without a doubt this is my favorite entry in the series. I was not expecting going into this game to even remotely being able to say that. Finding a game to finally top Oath and Felghana, which by the way still remains my favorite Ark of Napishtim game. This game does so much right, from its memorable soundtrack to its story and characters. It sets the staple I'm unsure of how the series is going to be able to live up to going forward. I'd love to see characters return in later games because there were promises or saying come visit us, and as much as I love these characters, it would be nice to see brief appearances of what they were up to during other games. Ys VIII, without a doubt, gets my Gaming with Spoons seal of approval. And not only that, it is a great entry to start with, though. I do think starting with this game is going to make you miss a lot of quality of life elements that this game adds. This is a game I will find myself thinking about for a very long time to come, and no doubt will stick with me. It's up there with Nier Automata, Persona 5, Dragon Quest XI as one of the greatest RPGs from this console generation, and well deserving of it. This is going to wrap up our Ys reviews. It is insane to think that we have reviewed 6 Ys games this year alone and have no more Ys games to review after this. The next time we review Ys on the channel will be Ys 9 Monstrum Nox. There are a few other Ys games that I do want to take a look at, such as Wanderers from Ys, Mask of the Sun, and Dawn of Ys. These are all titles I will return to at a later date, as I am ready to move on to something else. The next game we are going to be reviewing for the channel is going to be Legend of Legaia. Before we close out this video, I want to thank everybody who has come to support me, watched my reviews, and made this a very successful year for my Ys reviews. It's been insane to think of all the people that I have met online, Digital Elmolis and their community that they've created to be a part of that, and they have been a great resource into a lot of knowledge and information that I have had regarding the Ys franchise. So I'm going to leave a link down below for their website. I highly recommend you guys check out. Until next time, guys, be sure to follow me, Facebook and Twitter, links down below in the description box. If you are interested in seeing live streams, we will be doing those on Twitch for the time being. Twitch is kind of iffy right now. More on an update video on that later. But, most importantly, stay happy, be happy, game happy. Spoons is checking out.